I'll
Doing well,
talk about the game a
thanks.
little bit. So, it's kind of a game of highs and lows, as everybody kind of knows. So, obviously, a high point, we were able to successfully fake a punt, which is, I believe, the first time that the Colts franchise has done since 2016. I know it was kind of asked in here, I believe, by Steven not that long ago about, or maybe it was Kevin, I can't remember, sorry. But it was asked about, faking punts versus college versus the NFL. Obviously, every single week we're going to have different fakes or gimmicks that are up. It's really just a matter of, hey, can we get the stars to align to get in whatever field zone that we would like to run the fake in with whatever down and distance we deem to be able to be the best opportunity to get the fake successfully run, depending on what that fake or gimmick is, and get the look that we want to be able to do it again. Certainly, there's been times over the last 2.5 years where we've had a fake called, but had to check out of it because we don't have the look. So certainly, we want to put ourselves in a position to be successful to get something like that done. Rodney Thomas and the rest of the punt team did a great job being able to execute that and get a first down for us. So obviously, that was a really good moment as far as everything else goes there. The punt team as a whole did a good job against a really good punt return unit that in the past has been able to wreck games and in the past has created some explosive plays on us. Obviously the low being that we had a turnover. Josh Downs and Anthony Gould over, the last year and a half have done a really good job of securing the football and making good decisions. So really, I think this is something that was just kind of an atypical moment that we've got to improve on. The number one most important thing we all know in the return game is we have to secure the ball and give the best possible field position we can to the offense. We end up getting close to potentially having a block on a play. The ball ends up coming out where it's maybe a little bit weird, and we don't do a very good job of judging it. In that situation, if we're not going to catch it, Josh has obviously, talked about it after the game. We just got to get away from the ball, properly communicate. He kind of slips and loses his footing, and unfortunately ends up touching for ended up being a muff. And then at the end of the game, he doesn't do a very good job of judging it. Certainly something that we expect him to do a very good job of, and he has shown to do, in the past at a very high level. And we end up letting the ball hit at the 20 and roll all the way back to the 12, which certainly is not something that, we should be able to do. We were able to generate two good returns within the game, one for 11 yards, one for 10, but we got to be able to be more consistent there, as we all know. From a kickoff standpoint, we really did a solid job. The first one, we had an opportunity to tackle the 30, and we ended up missing a tackle. We needed to do a little bit better job there. We had two onside kicks. Usually in the NFL, you're looking at like a 7% chance to be able to get an onside kick. Certainly you're going to need a little bit of luck or something to go your way. I know the Bengals got one on Sunday where, a Bears player wasn't really maybe paying the closest attention and was blocking his man early and ended up letting the ball bounce off of him. And you're going to need some of that luck in different opportunities. I think Rigo's second onside kick was hit really well, but DK Metcalf did a great job just being in position to be able to secure that. From a kickoff return standpoint, we did not change the game by any means in that phase. The Steelers did a very good job winning some one-on-one matchups that we need to do a better job of. They did get a kickoff from the 50-yard line, which we've talked about in here before, and they kicked it out of bounds just like we did in the Raiders game. So I know we've kind of talked and worked through all those things. Badgley had a good game overall, did a good job converting all of his scoring opportunities. The last thing quickly, I'll just kind of hit on because it came up with Steven last week talking about the new kickoff model and how maybe that's changed field position and decision making. I know it came up in an Indy Star article as well. I did not have a bunch of great numbers to give you guys then, so I looked at it. So for looking at the first half of this season, weeks 1 through 8, versus the first half of the 2023 season, which was the old kickoff model. Obviously, there's been a significant increase in the return rate. This year, in the second year of the new model, the return rate is right under 80%. So obviously, there's a lot of kickoff returns that are happening. Whereas in 2023, the last year of the old model was 22%. Last year was 33%. There's a lot more action that's going on with that. The average starting field position right now is right above the 30-yard line through the first half of the season. Back in 2023, it was the 25-yard line. Everybody was hitting touchbacks. Touchbacks used to go to 25. So you're seeing a little bit, obviously, on average, a 5-yard increase in starting field position. There's a lot higher number, the highest number in over a decade of returns that go over 40 yards so far this year. So you're getting a lot more action with some of that stuff. But when you look at like all the numbers, right, through every team on average through the first 8 weeks of the season this year versus 2023, on average, everybody is scoring 1.3 more times total. So either they're getting one more touchdown or one more field goal, which isn't really statistically significant over 8 games, and which is then leading to everybody having in total on average one more kickoff. However, there are 3.5 less punts. So there is a higher, rate of people not punting, not necessarily leading to more points, but really I think what you're seeing is more people are getting the ball to midfield and they're attempting more long distance field goals or deciding to go for it, which is leading to less punting. So when you look at the end of the season, if this continues, we would have 7 less punts every single team on average than they did, previously, which is, a little bit more statistically significant to say, hey, there's going to be 7 less punts. Obviously, we as a franchise have a lot less punts, to start the first half of this year than we did the last 2 years due to offensive success and our ability to go for it more on fourth down. Certainly, we have a lot higher amount of doing that, but I think you're just seeing less punting in general, better field position because people are getting to the 50-yard line a lot more. There is more long distance field goals that have been kicked this year. It's not, really significant. There's only 12 in total, 50 plus more yard field goals than there was in 2023. 68% of those have been made this year, whereas in 2023, 69% were made. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, the K balls are really making an impact. Really, if you look at long distance field goals, the percentage is really still the same from before that slight change in the K ball rule as well. But certainly a little bit of differences there for anybody that's come up with some of the questions.
All right, Joel, you want to start us off?
Yeah, the Michael hitting those 250 plus yarders, he didn't have a ton of history with that in the league. What have you seen from him to give you guys the confidence?
Yeah, certainly that was within his range. We've all know and have said that maybe his range isn't as far as, obviously maybe it was with Spencer Schrader and things, but we have a ton of confidence with Badge. He has a ton of confidence in himself. He's had success here with the Colts franchise and working with Luke and Rigo in that operation before. He did a very good job executing those 2 kicks. I think the 52-yarder, maybe he got under it a little bit, didn't quite have as much extra room on that make. Where the 53-yarder, he, got much more leg under it and had a lot more distance to go into it. But it's not an easy place to be able to kick in Pittsburgh. He was kicking into the open end, so to speak, that goes to the river, so it was into the wind. It wasn't, obviously it was a very nice weather day overall for November in Pittsburgh, but still an outdoor game kicking into the windier side. He did a nice job hitting the ball throughout the game.
Kevin, go ahead.
Brian, you mentioned that percentage for onside kicks, obviously really, really low. Is it just solely dependent on the return team screwing up, or is there feel like tangible things you can really do to try and increase that percentage?
I think there are definitely tangible things like if you hit the ball, there's certain onside kicks where if you hit the ball really well, you can create a one-on-one matchup and be able to get that thing right as it crosses over at 10 yards. You'll see that happens, on occasion. We're trying to do that on our first onside kick, and it just ended up not taking the correct bounce for us. But that did happen recently in a Panthers game where they hit the ball and it went just at 10 yards. Their guy was in position to then be able to, at least have a chance to get it right then. So certainly if you execute really, really perfectly, you certainly have a chance as well. But it's kind of like a little bit with the field goal block and your ability to be able to block field goals. A lot of times your ability to block field goals is going to be dependent on either a low kick or slow operation and the field goal team not executing.
Just a couple more, Nathan.
Hey, Brian, was curious a little bit more on that fake punt there. I know you said that this was the franchise's first successful fake punt since 2016. How difficult, from what you've seen, looking at stats or just anecdotally, how difficult is it to pull off a fake punt in this day and age in the NFL?
Really just depends on the situation. I feel like I know a lot of people are maybe making a big deal out of us trying to fake punt at the 25 or 26-yard line, but I think the fake punt that we were running versus the look that we were getting, we were going to have a extremely high percentage of being able to get that fake punt. So it's going to be a matter of what fake punt are you running, what's the down and distance, and what is the look of the punt return team.
And then
that will greatly increase your ability to be able to get it done.
How would you characterize the decision-making process in a moment like that? Is that strictly a Shane call, or you and he conversing? Like, and I know it's a pretty condensed amount of time there that you guys are having to make that call. What are those moments like when you're deciding on something like that, trying to pull something like that off that could be somewhat rare, and as you mentioned, in a place on the field where if it doesn't go well, the Steelers are automatically in scoring position?
Yeah, really, a lot of that is determined, leading up to the game. So, on Tuesday, game planning day, we'll have game planning meetings, and I'll discuss with Shane on here are the fakes or the gimmicks that I think have a chance. Here's the reasons why. Here's what it looks like. We practice it during the week. Obviously, it does well during the week, or it's something that we've practiced from week to week. And then we have a situational meeting, usually on Thursday, where we go through all the different situations that could come up in this game, situations that come up around the league, and throughout that, hey, we'll say, hey, if we're in this area on this down and distance, we're good to be able to potentially call the fake as long as we get this look or and we'll check out of it if we don't get this look. So it's really, hey, we knew we're in the zone that we have the ability to be able to run it this week. If we get to this down and distance, be ready to do it. Hey, you want to do it? Yep. All right. And then we call it. Did we get the look? Yes. Then we're good to be able to move forward with it. So it kind of works through those checks and balances. But usually, before we even get to the game, hey, it's predetermined. Like, hey, this is the field zone down and distance that we're looking for this week, something along those lines.
Gotcha. And then I don't know how much you'll want to elaborate on this, but just was curious, as much detail as you can go into there with that play that you guys called and the look that you were getting. What made that call in that situation, given the fact that it was on the 25? You mentioned you felt pretty confident in it. What made that combo a good pair to give a go at that?
Well, we knew that the fake would have a really good chance of being successful if we got a certain set of looks that we thought would be very difficult for them to be able to stop it on a short distance situation, which that's not atypical from around the NFL that you would see a dive play like that on a short yardage situation, especially given certain looks. And then, obviously the best time to run a fake is when people don't expect you to run a fake, and maybe sometimes people don't expect you to run a fake from the minus 25-yard line. So there's a number of those different factors that can play into it, but really comes down to like the look and what fakes and stuff you have up for each game.